My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 34 years old. 3 years ago, I buried my wife after she lost her battle with leukemia. Since then, my entire world has been one little girl. My daughter, Lily. She's 8 years old now. Smart, kind, and somehow still believes I'm the strongest man alive. The truth? There were nights I skipped dinner so she could have breakfast the next morning. I never told her. She never needed to know. What she also didn't know was that my own family believed I had failed at life. According to them, a man who worked quietly, drove an old pickup truck, and wore the same jacket for 3 winters couldn't possibly be successful, especially not compared to my younger brother. His name was Ethan. Ethan had everything people loved showing off: a luxury SUV, designer watches, a huge house, expensive vacations, and an endless need to remind everyone about them. My mother adored him. Every family dinner turned into another award ceremony celebrating Ethan's latest purchase. Nobody ever asked how Lily and I were doing. Nobody asked how I handled raising a child alone. They only asked one question. So, Daniel, when are you finally going to get your life together? I stopped answering years ago, because no matter what I said, their minds were already made up. Last Saturday, my mother called. "We're having dinner tonight," she said. "Everyone will be there. You should come." Before I could answer, she added, "And don't make excuses this time." I looked at Lily sitting on our living room floor coloring a picture of butterflies. She smiled at me. "Can we go, Daddy?" I smiled back. Of course. Maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. Maybe my family would finally treat my daughter like family. I couldn't have been more wrong. The restaurant was the nicest one in town. Crystal chandeliers, live piano music, white tablecloths. The kind of place where every plate looked like artwork. The hostess smiled politely. "Reservation?" "Carter." She checked her tablet. "Your family is already here." As we walked toward the private dining area, I heard Ethan's laugh before I saw him. Loud, confident, always demanding attention. The moment we reached the table, he looked me up and down, then glanced at my truck keys hanging from my hand. "Still driving that old thing?" he laughed. "I thought it'd finally die." A few people chuckled. I simply smiled. "It still gets me where I need to go," he smirked. "Low standards." Mom laughed. "I've been telling him that for years." Lily quietly held my hand tighter. I squeezed hers gently. "It's okay." We sat down. Almost immediately, everyone started talking about Ethan, his promotion, his vacation, his new swimming pool, his expensive wine collection. For 20 minutes, nobody asked Lily a single question. Not one. She sat quietly drawing little flowers on her napkin. Then the waiter arrived. He handed menus around the table. Just as he reached Lily, Ethan stopped him. "Actually," he grinned, "give her the kids' menu." The waiter smiled politely. "Of course." Before he could place it down, Ethan laughed. "That's all Daniel can afford anyway." The table exploded with laughter. Even my sister nearly spilled her drink. Mom shook her head. "You really should learn to live within your means, Daniel." Then she looked at Lily. "Sweetheart, the chicken nuggets are probably delicious." Lily stared at the colorful children's menu, then slowly pushed it back toward the waiter. She whispered so quietly, only I could hear, "Daddy, I'm not really hungry." That sentence hurt more than every insult I'd heard in my life. Not because of what Ethan said, because my little girl believed she had become the problem. I reached across the table and smiled at her. "You can order anything you want." She looked at me nervously. "Really?" "Anything." She smiled. The first real smile she'd had all evening. Across the table, Ethan rolled his eyes. "Big spender tonight." I ignored him. There was no point. Some people mistake silence for weakness. I had learned silence was often the strongest answer. As everyone ordered expensive steaks, Lobster, imported wine, and desserts before dinner. I ordered something simple. Grilled salmon. Lily chose pasta. Nothing fancy. The waiter nodded, then walked away. Ethan leaned back in his chair. You know, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, I've always wondered something. I looked up. What? He smiled. Does it bother you, knowing your daughter has to grow up watching everyone else's kids have better lives? The table became silent. Mom didn't stop him. Nobody stopped him. Lily slowly looked down at the table. Her little hands tightened around her fork. I felt something inside me crack. Not anger, something colder. Disappointment. Not because Ethan embarrassed me, because he embarrassed a child. Before I could answer, the waiter returned carrying drinks. He placed sparkling water beside me, apple juice in front of Lily, then quietly leaned toward me. His voice was almost a whisper. Excuse me? Mr. Carter, the manager just arrived. He asked if you were here. For the first time all evening, I looked genuinely surprised. The manager? Yes, sir. He asked me to let him know the moment you arrived. Across the table, Ethan laughed. What did you do? Forget to pay your last bill? Everyone laughed again. I simply smiled. No, I don't think that's the reason. The waiter nodded respectfully. I'll let him know you're here. He walked away. None of them noticed. Every server in the restaurant had quietly turned to look toward our table. And within seconds, a sharply dressed man in a navy suit stepped out of a private office. He wasn't looking at Ethan. He wasn't looking at my mother. He wasn't looking at anyone else. He was walking straight toward me. The entire room grew quiet. The restaurant manager walked toward our table with calm, confident steps. He looked to be in his late 50s. Gray hair, perfectly pressed suit, a warm smile. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't who he was looking at. It was who he wasn't. He walked past my brother, past my mother, past everyone else. Then he stopped beside my chair. For a brief second, he simply smiled. Then he extended his hand. Mr. Carter, it's good to see you again. I stood and shook his hand. Good to see you too, Richard. My brother frowned. You know the manager? Richard chuckled. Know him? He looked at me. I've known Mr. Carter for almost 9 years. 9 years. The words hung in the air. My mother looked confused. Ethan, she whispered. Did Daniel ever work here? Ethan laughed. He probably washed dishes. A few people smiled. Richard didn't. Instead, he looked directly at Ethan. I'm afraid you're mistaken. Mr. Carter has never worked for me. The smile slowly disappeared from Ethan's face. Richard turned back to me. I apologize for interrupting your dinner, but Mr. Harrison just arrived. He asked if you'd join him for a few minutes whenever you were free. The name immediately caught everyone's attention. Even my mother recognized it. William Harrison, the owner of the restaurant. One of the most respected businessmen in the county. Ethan blinked. The owner wants to meet Daniel? Richard nodded. Yes. He specifically asked for him. My brother forced a laugh. Well, that's unexpected. He looked at me. So, what did you do? Fix his computer? I smiled. No. Richard spoke before I could. Mr. Harrison doesn't usually interrupt guests. But when Mr. Carter visits, he always makes an exception. Silence. Real silence. Even the piano in the dining room seemed farther away. Richard glanced toward Lily. His face softened immediately. And this must be Lily. She smiled shyly. Yes, I'm Lily. Richard crouched beside her. Your father talks about you every single time he visits. She looked surprised. He does? Every single time. He says you're the bravest little girl in the world. Lily looked at me. Her cheeks turned pink. I smiled. That's because it's true. Richard stood. I'll let Mr. Harrison know you've arrived. No rush. He politely nodded toward everyone else, then quietly walked away. No one said anything. For almost 20 seconds. Finally, my sister broke the silence. Daniel, since when do you know the owner? I took a sip of water. It's a long story. Mom leaned forward. Why didn't you ever tell us? I shrugged. You never asked. That answer landed harder than I expected. Because it was true. Not once. In nearly 10 years, had anyone asked what I was doing with my life? They only assumed. Ethan forced another smile. I'm sure it's nothing. Rich people know lots of people. Mom quickly agreed. Exactly. It's probably just networking. I didn't argue. There was no point. The appetizers arrived. Everyone began eating again. Or at least, they pretended to. But I noticed something. Every few minutes, someone looked at me, trying to figure me out, trying to solve a puzzle they'd ignored for years. Lily quietly leaned toward me. Daddy? Yes? Why does everyone suddenly keep looking at you? I smiled. Because sometimes, people notice you only after someone important does. She nodded thoughtfully. I think that's silly. So do I. A few minutes later, another waiter approached, this time carrying a silver tray. He stopped beside me. Mr. Carter, a small gift from Mr. Harrison. He placed a beautiful chocolate dessert in front of Lily. Not the cheap children's dessert, the restaurant's signature dessert. Fresh berries, chocolate art, homemade ice cream. Lily's eyes grew wide. For me? The waiter smiled. Mr. Harrison said, no child should ever leave this restaurant feeling less important than anyone else. The words hit the table like thunder. Nobody spoke. Because everyone knew exactly what had happened 20 minutes earlier. Lily looked at me. Daddy, I didn't order this. I know. She smiled. It looks beautiful. The waiter leaned closer. And Mr. Harrison asked me to tell you, tonight's dinner is already taken care of. My brother laughed loudly. Well, that's generous. I guess Daniel finally found someone willing to pay for him. The waiter looked confused. I'm sorry? Ethan smirked. You said dinner's free. The waiter politely corrected him. No, sir, I said. Mr. Carter's dinner. He didn't offer to pay for the entire table. The smile disappeared from Ethan's face. An awkward silence followed. Mom quietly cleared her throat. Richard returned again. Mr. Carter, whenever you're ready. Mr. Harrison is waiting. I looked at Lily. Would you like to come with me? Her eyes lit up. Really? Of course. She jumped out of her chair. As we started walking away, I heard Ethan whisper, what is going on? For the first time in years, he didn't sound confident. He sounded worried. Because the story he'd been telling himself about me was beginning to fall apart, and he had no idea. The biggest surprise was still waiting behind the owner's office door. Richard led Lily and me through a quiet hallway lined with framed photographs. Every picture told a story. The restaurant's grand opening, charity dinners, local newspaper awards, community events. Lily slowed down in front of one photograph. Daddy, isn't that the man we're going to meet? I looked at the picture. William Harrison stood beside dozens of employees, smiling proudly. Yes, I said. That's him. She tilted her head. He looks kind. He is. Richard stopped in front of a large wooden door. He knocked twice. A warm voice answered. Come in. Richard opened the door. The office was elegant but simple. Dark wood shelves filled with books. Family photographs covered one wall. Behind the desk stood William Harrison. He looked older than I remembered. His hair had turned almost completely white. But the moment he saw us, his face lit up. Daniel! Before I could say anything, he walked around the desk and hugged me tightly. It wasn't the polite hug of a businessman. It was the hug of family. "I've missed you, son." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "It's good to see you too." Then he looked down at Lily. "So, this beautiful young lady must be Lily." She smiled shyly. "Yes, sir." William knelt in front of her. "I've heard so much about you." She giggled. "Only good things, I hope." He laughed. "Only the best." Then he reached into a nearby cabinet. "I think I have something for you." He pulled out a small stuffed teddy bear wearing the restaurant's logo. Lily's eyes sparkled. "For me?" "Of course." She hugged the bear immediately. "Thank you." William looked at me. "She's just like her mother." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. For a second, the room disappeared. I saw Emily again. Her smile, her laugh, the way she used to squeeze my hand whenever life became difficult. William gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "I still think about her." "So do I." Silence filled the room. Not awkward silence, comfortable silence. The kind only old friends understand. William invited us to sit. Richard quietly closed the door behind us. Then William smiled. "I suppose your family still doesn't know." I laughed softly. "No, they've never asked." He shook his head. "The biggest mistake people make. They judge someone's bank account by their car." I smiled. "They've been doing that for years." William poured us tea, then leaned back in his chair. "Lily, would you like to hear how your father and I met?" She nodded excitedly. "Yes." William smiled. "It happened almost 9 years ago. I was having the worst day of my life. My wife had just passed away. My business was losing money. I had started wondering whether I should sell this restaurant." He paused. "That afternoon, I walked outside and saw a young man helping one of my waitresses change a flat tire." I smiled. "I remember." William laughed. "You refused to let her pay you. You simply said, 'Someone helped my wife once. Today it's my turn to help someone else.'" Lily looked at me proudly. "You really said that?" "I did." William nodded. "Most people don't know this, but kindness has a strange way of returning." He continued. "A few weeks later, I saw Daniel again. He wasn't asking for a job. He wasn't asking for money. He simply came to check whether my waitress had made it home safely." Lily's smile grew even bigger. William looked at her. "That's when I realized your father wasn't pretending to be kind. He simply was." I looked down. I had never expected anyone to remember those moments. William wasn't finished. A year later, this restaurant faced serious financial trouble. The bank wanted to shut us down. We were losing customers every month. I had almost given up. He looked directly at me. Then Daniel walked into my office. He placed a notebook on my desk. Lily frowned. "What was inside?" William smiled. "A complete business plan. Marketing ideas, community events, school partnerships, ways to save money without firing employees." I laughed. "I was just trying to help." "You did much more than help," William replied. "You saved us." Lily looked confused. "Daddy, I thought you worked in construction." "I did. I worked during the day and helped Mr. Harrison at night." Her eyes became huge. "You worked 2 jobs?" I nodded. "For a long time." William smiled proudly. "Every evening, after working 10 hours, your father came here. He wasn't paid. He never asked for anything. He simply believed this place deserved another chance." Tears filled Lily's eyes. "I didn't know that." I squeezed her hand gently. "There are many things you don't know yet." William looked toward the office window. "I've spent years telling people, the richest person I know isn't the one with the biggest house. It's the one who gives the most without asking for recognition." Before I could answer, a soft knock came at the door. Richard stepped inside. "Mr. Harrison." "Excuse me?" But Mr. Ethan Carter is asking if he can join you. William raised an eyebrow. He wants to come in? Richard nodded. He says he finally wants to know who Daniel really is. William smiled, then looked at me. Well, I think it's finally time. But before we tell them everything, I have one more document to show you. He slowly opened the top drawer of his desk. Inside lay a thick blue folder. My name, Daniel Carter, was printed across the front in gold letters. I hadn't seen that folder in almost 5 years. Then his smile slowly disappeared. There is something your family has never understood. He leaned back in his chair. They think wealth begins with money. He pointed toward my notebook. It doesn't. It begins with value. The money always arrives later. Lily quietly repeated the sentence. Wealth begins with value. William smiled. I hope you remember that for the rest of your life. She nodded seriously. I will. Just then, a loud voice echoed from outside the office. This is ridiculous. It was Ethan. I want to know why my brother is hiding in there. Another voice followed. My mother. Daniel, if you're embarrassing this family again, you need to come out. Lily looked nervous. I gently squeezed her hand. It's okay. William stood up slowly. His warm smile was gone. For the first time that evening, he looked every bit the respected businessman people feared disappointing. He pressed a small button on his desk. Richard answered through the intercom. Yes, sir? Please invite Mr. Ethan Carter, Mrs. Carter, and the rest of the family into my office. There was a short pause. Are you sure, sir? William looked directly at me. I nodded once. Yes, Richard replied. I'll bring them immediately. Lily looked up at me. Daddy, are they finally going to know? I smiled softly. Not everything. But they're about to learn the first truth they've ignored for years. Less than a minute later, the office door slowly opened. Ethan walked in first, still wearing that confident smile, still convinced he understood the situation. Behind him came my mother, my sister, my brother's wife, and finally my father. The moment they entered, William Harrison didn't ask them to sit. He simply looked at Ethan, then calmly said, Before we begin, I'd like to ask you one question. Ethan smiled confidently. Of course. William folded his hands. When was the last time you asked your brother how he was doing without judging him first? The smile disappeared from Ethan's face. Nobody answered. The silence was louder than any argument. The office remained silent. Nobody answered William Harrison's question. When was the last time you asked your brother how he was doing without judging him first? My mother looked at the floor. Ethan forced a laugh. I don't see what that has to do with anything. William didn't smile. It has everything to do with tonight. He slowly opened the blue folder again. This folder contains nearly 9 years of history. He removed the first document, a business proposal. He placed it on the desk, written entirely by Daniel. Ethan barely looked at it. So, William calmly pulled out another document. The first community fundraiser that saved this restaurant. He looked at me. Daniel organized it. Another document. The employee scholarship program. Daniel's idea. Another. The local farmers partnership. Daniel's plan. Another. The family discount nights. Daniel. Another. The children's reading program every Saturday morning. Also Daniel. Every new page felt heavier than the last. Nobody spoke. Lily looked at me with eyes full of pride. Daddy, you did all of that? I smiled. I only offered ideas. William shook his head. No, you offered hope. He walked toward a wall covered with framed newspaper articles. One article showed the restaurant winning Best Family Restaurant of the Year. William pointed at it. People congratulated me, but they never knew the person who made it possible. He turned toward my family. Daniel refused public credit. He said, "If the restaurant succeeds, the staff deserves the applause, not me." Even Richard smiled. I've never forgotten those words. My father finally spoke. I didn't know. William looked at him. No, you didn't. Because you never asked. The words landed like a hammer. Ethan folded his arms. So what? He gave you business advice. Lots of people give advice. William nodded. You're right. Lots of people do. Then he removed another document. This one was different. It carried several official signatures. Blue ink, legal stamps, a company seal. William carefully laid it on the desk. This is the agreement your brother refused to tell anyone about. Ethan leaned forward. My mother did the same. What agreement? She asked. William smiled slightly. 5 years ago, I offered Daniel a salary. He refused. I offered him a management position. He refused. I even offered him my office. He refused. My sister looked confused. Why? I answered quietly. Because I already had a full-time job. I didn't want another one. William laughed. He told me, help your employees first? I'll be fine. Richard nodded. He actually said that. William picked up the final document. So I made him another offer. One he couldn't refuse. Ethan's confident expression slowly faded. What offer? William looked directly into his eyes. I offered him ownership. The room froze. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. My mother blinked twice. Ownership? William nodded. Not because he asked. Because he earned it. My father whispered. How much ownership? William looked down at the document, then back at everyone. Enough that every major business decision over the last 5 years has required Daniel's approval. Silence. Complete silence. Ethan stared at me. No, that's impossible. I calmly replied, no, it's paperwork. My mother suddenly turned toward me. Daniel, why didn't you tell us? I looked at her for a long moment, then quietly answered, would you have believed me? Nobody answered, because they all knew the truth. They wouldn't have. Lily reached over and held my hand. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was simply looking at me the way children look at their heroes. I think Mommy would have been proud of you. For the first time that evening, my eyes filled with tears. I squeezed her hand. I hope so. Ethan suddenly stood up. This doesn't prove he's rich. William smiled. I never said it did. I said he helped build something valuable. There's a difference. Then William walked to the office window overlooking the dining room. He pointed toward dozens of employees serving guests. Every one of those families has a paycheck because this restaurant survived. He turned back toward Ethan. Your brother never measured success by expensive watches. He measured it by how many people could keep food on their tables. The office became painfully quiet. Even Ethan couldn't think of another joke. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. Then Richard knocked softly. Mr. Harrison, the dining room is waiting. William nodded. Good. He looked toward me. I think it's time everyone hears the rest of the story. I stood slowly. Lily took my hand. As we walked toward the office door, William quietly said something only I could hear. They laughed at your daughter tonight. I think she deserves to leave with a very different memory. I smiled. I couldn't agree more. William opened the office door. Outside, nearly every employee had quietly noticed something unusual was happening. My family followed behind us, still speechless, still trying to understand who I really was. But they still didn't know. The biggest surprise wasn't inside that blue folder. It was waiting, in the dining room. William Harrison pushed open the office door. The sound of conversations in the restaurant slowly faded as we stepped into the dining room. People noticed him immediately. The owner rarely left his office during dinner service. He walked beside me. Lily held my hand. My family followed several steps behind. Confused. Uneasy. The staff quietly straightened their uniforms as William passed. Instead of returning to our table, he stopped near the center of the dining room. He gently tapped a spoon against a crystal glass. The soft sound echoed through the restaurant. Conversation stopped. Guests looked up. "Ladies and gentlemen," William said warmly, "I apologize for interrupting your evening. I only need 1 minute." He smiled at the guests. "Tonight, someone very special is dining with us." I immediately leaned closer. "William, you don't have to do this." He smiled. "Yes, I do." He looked toward the staff. "Many of you know this story, but most of our guests don't." He placed a hand on my shoulder. 9 years ago, this young man walked into my restaurant with dirty work boots after finishing a 12-hour construction shift. He wasn't looking for money. He wasn't looking for a job. He simply wanted to help. The restaurant became completely silent. William continued. When everyone else saw an old building, he saw potential. When banks saw failure, he saw families who deserved another chance. When I was ready to quit, he reminded me why I opened this restaurant. I looked at the floor. This was never why I had helped. William smiled. Many people think success belongs to the loudest person in the room. He shook his head. No, success usually belongs to the quiet person, who's still working after everyone else has gone home. Several employees began clapping. One by one, the applause spread across the restaurant. Every waiter, every chef, every hostess, every dishwasher. They were all standing, clapping. Not for a businessman. For me. Lily looked around in amazement. Daddy, they're clapping for you. I knelt beside her. No, they're clapping for kindness. She smiled. I think they're clapping for both. I laughed through tears. Maybe. Then something happened I never expected. The head chef walked out of the kitchen carrying a small cake. Written in chocolate across the top were the words, "Thank you, Daniel." The entire restaurant applauded again. Lily threw her arms around my neck. I'm so proud of you. That single sentence meant more than every business document in William's office. Behind us, no one from my family moved. My brother stared at the floor. For the first time in his life, he looked small. My mother slowly walked toward me. Her eyes were red. Daniel, I'm sorry. I looked at her. She continued. I spent years celebrating success, but I never noticed your character. I thought expensive things meant someone had made it. I was wrong. I didn't answer immediately. Some apologies deserve silence before they deserve forgiveness. She began crying. I embarrassed Lily. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Before I could respond, Lily stepped forward. It's okay, Grandma. But next time, please don't make fun of kids. The innocence in her voice broke something inside my mother. She knelt down and hugged Lily. I'm so sorry. Then Ethan walked over. There was no confidence left. No jokes. No arrogance. Only shame. He looked me straight in the eyes. I spent my whole life trying to impress people. And you spent yours helping people. I thought I was winning. He laughed bitterly. I don't think I ever understood what winning actually meant. He extended his hand. I'm sorry, brother. I looked at his hand. Then I shook it. Not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because carrying hatred would have hurt me more than it hurt him. William smiled. Now, I believe there's one more thing. He nodded toward the waiter. The waiter brought the dinner bill. William handed it to me. I looked at him. He smiled. Tonight, you decide. I slowly walked over to Ethan, placed the bill in front of him, then quietly slid it back toward myself. Everyone watched. I took out my card, paid only for Lily and me. Nothing more. I smiled politely. The issue was never the money. It was respect. No one argued, because no one could. As Lily and I walked toward the exit, every employee wished us good night. Outside, the cool evening air felt different, lighter. Lily looked up at the stars. Daddy? Yes? Are we rich? I smiled. What do you think? She thought for a moment, then held my hand tighter. We have people who love us. We help others. And we have each other. I think we're already rich. I couldn't have given a better answer myself. 6 months later, life became quieter. Ethan started volunteering at a local food bank every Saturday. Not because anyone told him to, because he finally understood humility. My mother apologized to Lily every chance she got. Slowly, very slowly, our family began healing. Not perfectly. But honestly, as for me, I kept driving the same old pickup truck. I still wore the same jacket. And every Friday evening, Lily and I had dinner at Harrison's restaurant. Not because I owned a small part of it, but because it reminded me of something I'll never forget. People can laugh at your clothes. They can laugh at your car. They can laugh at your job, but they can never laugh at your character once the truth is revealed. Real wealth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by the lives you quietly improve when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, tell me, what would you have done if someone had humiliated your child in public? And don't forget to comment where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel.